All right. So the year 2019 is at our doors, and it is ready to come in, and it's ready to join the rest of us in the land of the living. And for some of us, that's a good thing. The only reason that you're going to stay up tonight on New Year's Eve is just kind of make sure that 2018 ends, because it's been chaotic, it's been tumultuous for you. So it's something something that's on a lot of people's minds is this idea of the new year, new me, or the New Year's resolution, decisions, goals that you're going to set for next year that are going to make your life better by some means. But I think it's very tempting, especially for some that they tend to have that spiritual word that's going to guide their next year, kind of stuff. That they tend to focus too much on the year that's coming, and they neglect to kind of close out 2018 and the things that happened to them. And so that's where the idea of a personal inventory comes into play. This idea of that you need a sheet of paper and you need to write some things down about the year 2018 so that you can finish that chapter, clean the slate, move into 2019. Now, some would push back, like, why do I need to write it down? Mostly, like, if you're a journaler, you keep a diary, you keep a kind of whatever, something like that, a devotional plan, you might have already done this and you don't even know it. But for those of you who don't do those things, you're like, why do I need to write it down? I meditate all the time. What do I need to write the stuff down for? And that is a rut. That itself is a mental, kind of behavioral in a lot of ways, rut that keeps you in a lot of the problems that you face. There's an old quote, I don't know who it's by, but it's that the mind cannot process any information until it has passed through the lips or the fingertips. Unless you've said it out loud to someone else that you trust, wrote it down on a piece of paper for someone else to read, you haven't thought anything. So if you've gone the whole year, you've never done that, you've never written someone a letter, you've never made a journal entry or a blog post, you've never done any of that stuff, I would highly request it, like, that. Have you thought anything? Have you had any real ideas? Anything that's been so weighted on you that you had to expunge it out in some means? And you would push back of, like, why do I need to write it down still? Because our memory is fickle and terrible. If you didn't write it down, you won't remember it. Because a lot of us that do write things down a lot, you got post-it pads or whatever, we'll even attest that writing it down sometimes isn't even good enough. So for those of you who don't write things down, you are handicapping your own ability to really accomplish any goals in your life. So, that aside, what you want to do with this personal inventory is there's a couple of main subjects you need to write about. The first is sin. Top 5, top 10, top 3, top 1, whatever. The main sins that you have struggled with. And don't use vague terms like lust, anger, depression, unless you're talking about it. Because, like, don't use vague terms like that. Be specific. Maybe you struggle with pornography. You have a pornographic addiction, or you have alcohol, drugs, sex, approval of others. Whatever it is, write it down with as much detail as possible. If you leave it vague, in the same way that goals are, the more vague it is, I want to lose weight. Well, if you happen to lose 1 pound, technically you just accomplished that goal, even though you probably aren't really healthier. Like, You can kind of philosophically or psychologically manipulate yourself into thinking that you've conquered something that you haven't, giving yourself cheap wins you didn't earn. So use as much detail as possible. You struggle at the hour of 3 in the morning or 11 o'clock at night. You struggle with getting onto this website and seeing this content, whatever. Or that when this certain kind of stimuli, passing or failing, you tend to get into a very deep pit of sorrow that causes you to self-harm or whatever. Like, write it down with as much detail as you feel that it needs in order to express it as honestly and authentically as possible. If that's a top 5, if that's top 10, whatever it is, you know how many there are. In fact, even while listening to me talk, you've already kind of compiled a list of several items probably in your mind. Just write it out. It's already there. Just write it out. Get it into the reel. Then, once you've done that, make a list of 3, 5, however many people who you trust, who you believe that will honestly hold you accountable in destroying those habits in the new year. Maybe you need to form a Bible study with those people. Now, they don't have to all be shared gender. If you're a guy, they don't have to be all guys, but probably they should be. Just saying. Like, if you're married, your wife probably needs to be one of those people. If you are a teenager, you might want to consider inviting your parents into that circle. Your youth pastor, maybe. Or if you have a Bible study leader or a small group, maybe inviting them into that, of whatever, of that tight circle of like that. I'm going to show them my list, and I'm going to invite them to speak into it. Not just giving them a view of it, I'm going to give them a voice so that they can give me advice on how to conquer it, and that they'll be able to call me out at, let's say, 3 a.m. or 11 o'clock at night. They can call me up and say, what are you looking at online right now? Or, who are you with? Which people, what friends are you hanging out with right now? I'll come get you. I'll get you out of that situation. Whatever. You're going to give them a voice. And then, lastly, you're going to give them a vote. You're going to give them the ability to tell you to stop, to say no. So those maybe 5, maybe 10, however many people for each one, that these are the people that are going to keep me on the carpet with these issues. They're not going to let me slide. They're going to make sure that that I'm being honest with them, that they can tell when I'm lying, so forth. Like, with those 2 lists in hand, go ahead and go into 2019 as a new you, because once you've reconciled, like, this is the sin that's holding me back, and these are the people that God has given me in my life that are going to help catalyze me breaking free of that sin, you've built yourself a team and a plan for making 2019 great. But if you're not willing to do those 2 things, like, well, I don't know anybody, get to know some people. Well, I don't need to write down my sins. I already know what they are. Yeah, and you're hiding from them. You're hiding in them. You're pretending they don't exist. So, that's my advice. New year, personal inventory. Cataloging your sin and creating your fellowship of your community that's going to help you conquer that sin in the year 2019. If you have that, or you feel comfortable posting it below, maybe some people that'll find this video can give you some good tips or advice on how to get free. The number one person I'd say that needs to be involved is your own pastor or your small group leader, someone who's in spiritual authority over you, because first, they're an authority over you, and they will be held accountable for at the end of their life for the sheep of their pasture, which involves you. So it's a service to them for you to invite them in and to allow them the place to help you get better. So with that, good luck with the new year. I hope that it does go well for you and that um, you are able to break free of the sin that is holding you down. So, peace.